37 Disney Street, which isn't far from you, 3 Disney fans have watched a film which they will now review.
Hello friends and welcome to 37 Disney Street. We're taking a slight departure to Italy this week as we take a look at Disney Pixar's latest release, Luca. Silenzio Bruno. I'm Chris Fletcher.
Everyone loves an underdog, right? I'm Lucy Rain.
Santa mozzarella! Hello friends, I'm Hugh Rain.
Everybody.
I was feeling that music then.
Yeah, it's a funny one this week because we normally have 2 weeks off before we do a show, but then we realised that Luca was being released, so we thought we'd better do something about it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we did.
So that's this.
So here we are.
This
is what we're doing now. We're going to try and keep it a bit succinct today as well, I think. So see if we can manage not to have a unicorn come and visit us.
Well, I'm going to help you out because I have no history. This is a brand. I don't think I have done for other new release films actually.
No, not
the new
particularly.
release ones. They just come fresh out of the bag. We don't want all that background and that baggage. We're like, let's have a look. What do we think? How do we feel? So we're kicking straight into it, aren't we?
We are. So do we have anything else we want to say, or do we just jump straight into the kids?
Well, let's.
Do you want to talk about your first thoughts about it? Anything like that?
Expectations.
Expectations. Because I'm one of the licensees with work. I attended a Zoom presentation last summer where someone read through the whole story just in quite a flat voice.
I remember you saying this.
At the time, I thought I think I muted it after a while because I was working at the same time. But I thought I don't want to experience the story this way, so I muted them.
So, was things spoilt for you for when you watched it last night?
No, it would have been, but it was that long ago that I actually forgot most of it.
Ah, well, that's good.
Okay. I really didn't have any expectations for this. I felt a big build-up towards Soul at Christmas. I'm currently feeling quite a big build-up towards Black Widow because I'm a big Marvel fan. And somehow in the promo PR web of Disney, this seems to have fallen between the sofa cushions a bit. So it wasn't until last week we're like, oh, Luca's released this week. Usually I'd be counting down to a new Disney release.
Well, they've almost declassified Pixar films over the last year, haven't they?
Yeah.
With everything happening and cinemas being shut, obviously, when Soul came out and Onward just creeping in before it, they just seem to have made this decision that, and I think, weren't the announcements back end of last year that this and is it Turning Red, the next one? The schedule will also be straight to Disney Plus. So it seems like it's a trend. My expectations were probably built around what we've had from Pixar for the last forever. So I expected to be pulled on my emotions rather heavily, and at times in ways that I didn't want to be. So that's the expectation I had going in, pretty much.
Isn't it strange when a studio has
a reputation?
That reputation. Not individual filmmakers or directors or writers, the whole studio. Very strange situation.
Well, it's a bit like we've got a period that we're about to jump into with Disney where there seems to be similar themes appearing over a number of films, and it feels a bit like that to me as well. Like they've just gone down this route and they've almost been daring each other to make the next film sadder or more emotive and to push more adult themes into this, and it's kind of reaching a bit of a pinch point for me. I think things need to change.
Okay, so I'm going to be interested to know when we get on to story if you think, in which ways you think that is fulfilled in this film, because I think it actually it turned a bit of a corner as of previous trends.
Well, I shall talk about that as we get going.
Should we listen to what the kids have got to say?
I think listening to the kids is a very good idea right now. Let's do it.
We had a movie night and we watched Luca and I had popcorn. It's about this sea creature and he's called Luca And when they go on land, they're human. But whenever he gets wet, he turns sea monster again. The town kill those monsters and want them dead. This person pulls one who's supposed to stay in the water onto land, and then he stays on the land. When his parents found out, they thought it was dangerous up there, and they were going to send him to the deep with his weird uncle, and he was my favourite because he's so weird. My favourite bit was none of them. They go to the human town, and they want a Vespa, which is like a motorcycle, and they have to win a race to do it. They had this poster on his friend's wall, and it was of this Vespa. They imagined that if they won it, they would travel all around the world. So there's 3 stages: swimming, that the girl does, eating pasta, Luca does the bike riding, and he won the race. They got the Vespa, but the person sold it so he could get a ticket on the train to go to the school. Their friend who was helping them with the race, she had to go to school on a train and go see her mum. Then Luca actually went with her, but his friend didn't. The end. I will give it 4 bubbles out of 5. My favourite bit was the race when Luca won. My favourite colour was nobody. I would give it a 4 out of 5. 0 out of 0.
Why is that? Did you sleep all the way through it?
No, I didn't sleep all. Some.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Nope.
There you go.
Nope.
They were really good with the names there, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, actually,
I'm going to struggle with some of those.
I struggled with a character's name. I had to look it up. As we were watching it last night, I was like, I thought his name was Roberto, but it's not.
There you go. So
That's just a restaurant we like. In Batley.
I feel like we should have said before the kids just told you the whole story.
No spoilers.
There are spoilers in this review. This is a spoiler review, just if you haven't watched it. But by now, we've ruined it for you anyway, so...
Although you don't know who any of the
your
characters are, so you don't know who's going to do any of these things.
I can't imagine people watching this who haven't seen it.
No, and I will put spoilers on the title for it as well, so they'll be aware. You'll be aware. Good.
So,
Yeah.
this feels different.
Yeah.
It feels like a Studio Ghibli film. Ghibli. Have you seen that French one, The Triplets of Belleville?
No.
It had that feeling about it, and I think that was intentional. It had this European feeling to it, and also possibly a bit Japanese creeping in, but it just felt like a different studio had made it. It felt Italian. Success.
Yeah, it really did feel Italian. It had a lot of the qualities that I like in the film, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Not as many murders, but that whole feel of it just pulled me straight in, in there.
The Riviera.
Mm.
Also, that Riviera touch with Morecambe and Wise.
Okay.
A surprising number of the cast of the crew, I should say, the cast as well, but the crew, the writers, the directors, the lead animators were Italian. I noticed when the credits came up, which came as quite a surprise because it's still Pixar. You know, they haven't recruited elsewhere, or perhaps they have, but yeah.
But if they're bringing out a film 2 a year like this, then they can afford to do that. They can afford to get some other people involved.
There's a 15-minute documentary on Disney Plus with the director going back to his hometown, which is basically a place exactly like that. I didn't get a chance to watch it all, but it looked quite interesting. It's a non-story, this, but there you go. So if you want to check out the extras, it's
like
Brian
Butterfield or Butterworth? Butterfield. I haven't read it, but I will on my next holiday.
Yes, check that out maybe.
It's been 5 years since the last fully female-led Pixar film. Can you name that film?
That would be Inside Out.
Inside Out, yeah, presumably.
No, Finding Dory.
Oh yeah.
But since then, it's been Cars 3, Coco, Incredibles 2, which Mrs. Incredible Girl, what's she called? Elastigirl.
Elastigirl, yeah.
She's more at the forefront, but it's about all of them.
Ensemble piece.
Toy Story 4 onwards, Soul, and now Luca, and I'm thinking, it's a bit of a where the girls at?
Well, Toy Story 4 is very much about Bo Peep and about that other girl as well.
And also, we watched, I can't remember what it is. Is it Pixar Moments or something? There was a documentary on Disney Plus, and there's actually a woman whose job it is to make sure that the lines are evenly divided between female and male characters.
Think it generally is across all the characters if you look at them, but like I say, it's been 5 years since you could truly say Finding Dory, that's a female character-led film.
Yeah.
It's just I find it interesting that it's been that long, really.
It is.
But is the next one going to be a girl? I think it is.
Yes.
Turning red.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I believe so.
So that balance will come back. It's just interesting. I'm not, I'm not making a comment. Just noted it.
Did you find there was an air of familiarity about this entire film? Because I felt like, and maybe some of this comes into animation, I'm not sure, but certain characters you felt like you'd seen and felt those characters before in other Pixar films. And it felt like it was a very deliberate thing to help bring you in. I think with this film, it was like a summer holiday film, wasn't it? It was like what you did when you were a child and you went and met friends at the campsite or whatever, and you'd spend that whole holiday with those people, and they were the most important people in the world, and you were going to be friends forever. It had that feel about it and that familiarity, and I think it felt like it probably wasn't deliberate, but it felt like it was a deliberate thing that they brought in characters in the mother and father that were like the mother and the older student in Monsters University, and the villain was like the chef in Ratatouille, and they just seemed to be, to me anyway, they really stood out as real similarities.
The girl's dad was the dad from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying about those characters familiar. For me, I really enjoyed the feel of it. I did enjoy the story, and you can tell when you're 2/3 the way through and you're really worried about what's going to happen next, you're really engaged in it, that you've got a good narrative there. But I do think there was a problem across the board with the relationships, just across the board in the whole film. I have several problems here. He comes from a very loving family unit, and they established that quite soon. But the speed with which his mother decided she was going to send him away for 2 years to a dreadful place, a very clearly dreadful place, she didn't think she was sending him to a better place, was quite shocking. The way that he was happy to just leave his parents in that way, and he didn't have concern for them, and then they didn't come back, was quite shocking to me. There was a bit of a dysfunctional relationship going on between Alberta and what's the main guy? Luca.
What's the film called again?
Wow.
Sorry, Alberta and Luca. That was a little bit dysfunctional. When
It was Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know that story, but I'm going to go, yeah, it was.
Pretty much was.
Where was Alberta's dad? I thought that was going to be a big reveal. The big reveal was that he'd been there for ages and his dad had gone, which I knew was going to happen, but where and why, that is a huge issue.
Yes, but it isn't. This is the thing for me. It isn't, because those are the things that Pixar in any other film over the last 5, 6, 7 years would have gone in depth into and would have felt heart-wrenched and broken about it and awful, but instead it was just a nice story and they didn't focus on any of those things, and I loved it for that. I loved the simplicity of it. I loved that it wasn't throwing us into all these difficult questions about relationships and where people's parents were and the wherefores and whys. It was focused on these 2-3 characters that had the friendship, and it focused on that and not on everything else around it.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Chris, for
are.
very specific reasons. Well, the thing is that there's lots of examples of books and films that are from a child's perspective, and they don't show you everything because not everything is important to a child, but what you do get is the information that is important to that child. So Julieta, for example, They don't go into the backstory of why her parents got divorced and how she feels about it or anything like that. But you do know that she spends summer here with the dad, and that she goes back home and spends and then goes to school where her mum lives. And to that child, that's what matters. The rest of it doesn't matter. But you're leaving out information and you're leaving out things, relationship issues that would be very important to those characters one way or another. I know why they don't delve into why the parents do this, do the other, but it's, you know, like a break of trust would be important to Luca with his parents, and that moment isn't there, or a connection when his parents decide that he can go to school would be important, and that's not there. And I think any narrative, no matter what the genre, that's what it's built on. And there was just something that was a little empty in it all. But I enjoyed the story.
Gone heavy. Well, I to be a bit more superficial, I thought it was very Finding Nemo meets Little Mermaid, and not just because it's under the sea, but you've got these overprotective parents who are like Marlon, who don't want him to go anywhere near the humans or the outside world, but also he's collecting trinkets.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I said that at the time.
And he's basically wanting to be part of their world. So it felt like really familiar territory with this story. It's like, what's so bad about the ocean? It's bigger than, like, why does everyone want to go on the land? What's so good about it? I don't know.
Actually, I thought I would liken it to Dirty Dancing as a film, or The Way Back, in the way in which that character goes through their experience in this new place, meets new people and interacts with them. And again, I do get where you're coming from, Lucy. I completely get where you're coming from. I just think in this moment, within this story, those things aren't pivotal to it, and so they don't matter in that instance. Did you find it strange that his job seemed to be, as a kid, protecting fish and stopping them from being killed? And then when he went up to the land, his job became killing fish,
get the fish,
and then eating fish. Well, not a job eating fish, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I did.
I did. Did they eat the fish? They ate the pasta.
It was a fish pasta dish, wasn't it? So I'm
was
assuming
it?
they did. Yeah. Well, they're sea monsters, so they're probably the fish underneath were farmed for themselves, weren't they? Farmed for them.
When he served up that pesto pasta dish, I said to Lucy, does that look good? Because she likes pesto pasta.
Oh, I love a pesto.
I do love a pesto pasta.
Oh. Is that gnocchi with pesto?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what? We had a very late lunch, and I said, I'm not going to need dinner. And I didn't at like 6, 7 o'clock. Now
Are you starving now?
I want that pesto pasta.
Delicious.
There's also an attempt to make it sort of magical by having these cutaway dream sequences. But I thought they didn't really add anything. And they kept coming at like odd moments. Like he'd just be talking to his mum and suddenly he'd be in a daydream and she'd snap him out of it. But daydreams aren't really like that. You don't just kind of go... And you're off in a way. It was a bit like, it was like they were trying to make it sort of, Walter Mitty, like, a bit peppered with a bit of magic and daydreaminess, and I thought it was a bit of a miss that for me.
It's interesting because in like a Gravity Falls type TV series, you can do that kind of stuff and it works well, but in a longer format like a film, I don't think it necessarily does. And I think that again we'll talk about this in animation, but I get the whole thing had a feel of more of a TV series than a film to me. Yeah. Even though it didn't have like straight stop points or chapters or anything to it, it felt like it would have worked really well as a an end-to-end series.
And that's the first of 2 Gravity Falls references today. At least.
There you go. I love a Gravity Falls reference.
I just want to make clear at this point, I got very nitpicky then if we're reviewing this as a perfect film. But if I just put aside my issues, I did really enjoy it, and I really enjoyed the romp. Loved the setting. I loved the race aspect and the character of Giulietta when she came in. And yeah, it was...
I liked that it was quite low stakes. Basically,
a Vespa.
They want a Vespa. I mean, I know there's other things going on and themes, but that's basically the through point is we want a Vespa.
And not even like a brilliant Vespa, like a clapped out old rotting
that would be good
Vespa.
enough. Yeah.
The joke of the mum and dad trying to get all the kids wet in the village as well was
Yeah, that's
quite
pretty
fun.
good. I enjoyed that.
But also, it's nice. The sort of the locale. It was nice to spend time there. I guess. I just generally just wasn't blown away though. It was nice enough, but and this is what I always say about Pixar now is I go, yeah, it was all right. It's not a classic though. Not a classic Pixar, and that's happened less and less. We're getting classic Pixars.
When was the last time we got a classic Pixar? Like, I think of the first 5. I love Bug's Life, but maybe not Bug's Life. But you're talking Toy Story, Monsters, Incredibles, things that have had sequels since, but you're established major franchises.
I love Monsters University.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite Disney films of all time. Unpopular as some people might think that, but I don't think it's a classic still.
But I mean the franchise of Monsters.
When was the last classic?
I'm
looking at the list of the films.
Well, are you back to good stories, but not necessarily?
For me, it's probably The Incredibles, all the way back there.
Yeah.
Because I'm not personally that big a fan of Ratatouille.
Wall-E's a good film, but it's not like
Toy Story 3.
in the zeitgeist.
Coco's great.
No,
Up is
I
great.
love Coco.
I think Wall-E is a bit of a classic.
I've still not seen it. It's the only one I haven't seen.
Oh, when was Up? Was that after Wall-E or before? Oh, this list
not
isn't chronological. Anyway.
Okay.
It's been a long time anyway. I think the answer is long time.
When do we do planes?
Shall we judge the story? Judge. Shall we mark the story, or have you got anything else you want to say about it?
I don't think I've got masses to say. The only other thing I would like to say, and I know you'll talk about this in your cry factor, but the emotion stuff, it wasn't huge. It was just nice, and actually that made it nicer when you got emotional about things. The ending, I'm going to mention a TV show now on Disney Plus, which I've already mentioned twice today, but I've said before, Lucas cried his eyes out in the last episode of Gravity Falls because it was the end and they were going home, and he was absolutely mortified about it, and he cried today, yesterday, sorry, when we watched it, at exactly that same point when it was all over and he was going and he was letting him go. That's when Lucas got really upset. Just because it was really beautifully done. Again, I know you're going to talk about this later. You might have completely different views to me, but there wasn't they weren't pushing it hard all the time. They didn't keep trying to make you cry every 20 minutes. They weren't introducing things just for the sake of emotions. And it was refreshing. It was nice.
It's a strange bar to have to get below though when
I was starting.
It didn't make my soul hurt. Oh, brilliant! I
was starting to think that like with Pixar, the first thought was like, what's a good way of making people cry? Almost like they were forgetting the other things and they were putting them on afterwards.
Like Disneyland Paris and the hazelnut shortbread.
But what was saying earlier about his parents, I didn't buy that they kind of, Alberto sells the Vespa and then the whole family arranged for Luca to go off behind his back, even though he's stressed interest in it. So, but it's like, but they go, oh, while you're here, we've got you a ticket. I've sold the Vespa. They put all the eggs in one basket, and you're going on this train. I didn't buy that his parents would also be like, see you, even if it's like for a better life. Like I would never do that. I would never send my daughter away, like thinking, she might enjoy it.
But I guess it's the next bit from the the end of Dirty Dancing, when you realise, hey, do you know what? She can dance, and I'm really pleased to see that she can dance because maybe, just maybe, she can be my daughter again. So
I haven't seen it.
so that happens. That's what happens. Right. And in this film, they win the race, and they're suddenly like, oh well, actually, look, he's managed to do all this, and he's been on land. Okay, fine, I'm sold into it. Maybe he's going to be all right. But in Dirty Dancing, you don't see what happens next, whereas in this you do.
I suppose maybe they've got to have something happen at the end. Like he's got to have grown because it's a coming of age film, so maybe he can't just go back to his old life, can he? Maybe this has to happen. I don't know. I just didn't buy that whole scenario of like, see ya, son, and also this has all happened behind your back. But now that you're here, get on that train. Bye.
But his thirst for knowledge is great. The fact that he takes in everything that Alberto says to him and believes it all, and then as soon as Juliana starts to question it and basically show him otherwise, he just wants to learn more and learn more and learn more. And I love that. And how could you as a parent say, no, forget it, get back in the water. I don't want you to learn.
That child of ours is going nowhere.
I think I took against it a little bit with the uncle scene. And I think we need to talk about that. And then that decision had been, as far as they knew at the time, they'd got the uncle in the kitchen. He'd only been there once. I know he then confessed to going more, but the uncle was already there, and she was like, right, that's it. You're going to the worst place possible. But there's several things about that. I think that was awful and poorly written as a plot point. There's other ways they could have done it. He could have gone to live on another island or whatever. To have him
chain into a sink.
This concept of going to the very, very, very bottom of the sea where there's no light and these weird... It's one of my biggest fears. You know, when you see documentaries on it, it's I don't find it interesting. I just find it so gross. I need to turn the documentaries off immediately.
It was kind of funny,
It's the
but
worst
it
thing.
was funny, but really dark. Like
Really
dark. Literally and metaphorically. But it left. It's a depressing thought that it would be sent
So
to
awful.
the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean.
So one of the things I thought, I've now mentioned Dirty Dancing, but I kept coming back to this thought that it felt very 80s to me. But in 80s film, they would be sending the kids to army camp. That's the equivalent, isn't it?
I know, but
you keep
it's
behaving
not...
like this and you're going to go join the army.
I need to translate it. It's not the equivalent. They were sending him somewhere where he would have nothing to do or be. He'd have, it would be nothing.
It's like going to
and it
prison.
was just be alone
Worse
with
than
your
that,
own
actually, isn't it?
thoughts. And that uncle was gross in the worst possible ways. It wasn't like, oh, how funny, what horrible monster. I found that whole seeing his innards, and I just found it awful.
It was
I
disturbing.
found the whole
Yeah, it
thing
was, I guess so.
uncomfortable. And at that, I think...
Deeply disturbing.
What-
Fundamentally disturbing.
Yeah, I just glossed over all that.
Well, the rant I went on about relationships, really, I'm probably painting it too much with the whole brush because it was all formed in that moment. I thought, there's something really wrong about the way they've written this. And then I probably just, it was confirmation bias from then on. The rest of it's probably not as bad as I say in that respect, but I just found that awful.
But it's funny that that's how you've taken that, because they'll have written that thinking, well, this is a gag, isn't it? This is a good gag. And probably not much more to it than that.
Too bad.
It was upsetting.
It
Yeah.
was really upsetting concept.
It was almost like it was abusive.
Yeah. And then they'd come out and be fun people playing football with some kids, and it's just... And oh, look, he rode his bike really fast. I'm so proud of him, sending him to school. How fickle are you? You know? Anyway, go on.
Should we score it?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Okay. It's enjoyable. It's nice to spend time, like I say, in that locale. It was new. It felt a bit fresh. It just didn't blow me away, and I found the story actually a little bit meandering. To say it was quite simple, but then it was just felt a bit wobbly. There was nothing to really latch on to, like, this is happening. It was like, I give it a 7.
I enjoyed it. I would watch it again. I think it's great. Is it War and Peace? Is it Pride and Prejudice? Is it Tangled? No. It's not that perfectly written as these kind of stories. So it's a 7. It's good.
Sometimes you need a good, like, summer movie, summer bromance movie, or a Dirty Dancing, or a Way Back, or
He loves Dirty
I know.
Dancing, doesn't he?
or Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. I grew up loving that, and I know it's a problematic story. We won't get into that right now, but that the friendship of those two unlikely people.
Stick of the dump.
Stick of the dump, yeah. Why not? This kind of story has been done so many times, and generally, like you said, the stakes are really low. It doesn't matter. It's just about those characters, and it's nice and it's fun, and you get invested in it. And I really enjoyed it. I've given it an 8.
Next up, we have animation.
Shall I press a button this time? Because I didn't do it for
We
story.
didn't play the jingle first time.
Oh well. Here's the animation music.
Look at the animation hue, the characterization hue, and don't forget the background and the style. Yeah, man.
Well,
Animation.
yeah.
This has been criticised by some I've seen. I follow an animation news topic on Twitter, and a lot of animators were complaining about bean mouth.
Okay.
Bean mouth is...
Is this your CalArts thing that you?
It's a CalArts
Okay, thank
thing.
you.
Often associated with CalArts. So we're thinking Gravity Falls has it.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
The Amazing World of Gumball. Steven Universe. And then New Thundercats Raw.
Bubble Guppies has a bit of that as well.
Okay. Clarence, to some extent, I'm not sure it's quite the same, but they have this bean mouth, and I sometimes draw bean mouth in my work, and I quite like it occasionally. I don't stick to it though. But then also it's one of those Twitter things, classic Twitter, where one half is saying it's just bean mouth, and the other is saying, "Oh God, anyone who buys into this bean mouth thing, it's more than that." Blah blah blah. So it's just one of those arguments. Anyway, I don't. I think my point is, I quite like the bean mouth in this because I haven't seen it really in CG, and I think it suited the style. Lucy saw some in Disney store today, and she said it was like pure Aardman.
That's what I said about Turning Red, wasn't it, a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
I noticed that straight away, and I put, in fact, in my notes it says Cal Arts about 10 times, I think. The thing for me is, I've not seen it done in a 3D kind of way, apart from Bubble Guppies, which basically is 3D images with pencil drawing mouths on it and stuff. Well, not pencil drawing, you know what I mean? It's nothing exceptional. I thought it did work really well. One of the things I found really interesting, though, we were talking about this when we were looking at Tiana, about what's that one called? The Princess and the Frog.
Princess and the Frog.
Is how they took these 3D characters and they tried to do 2D things with them, like the mother's calling thing when she was going whoo like that. Little things that they were doing with the way that they moved that didn't feel natural because it was in 3D, but they were obviously trying to play with that a little bit, and it actually kind of worked. I thought. I thought it felt quite experimental at times, different to what they've done before. It didn't look like a Pixar film in the same way that other Pixar films have done forever. It didn't look Disney either. It felt like it had its own identity, and I really liked that.
I wouldn't have been surprised if you'd told me it was one of the other studios, if you'd said this is a Blue Sky film.
Yeah.
Very, very believable. But it doesn't...
no, it's not that bad.
Well, no, okay. But it doesn't have...
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of Illumination. They're
It
bad.
doesn't have the
Guys,
thumbprint.
Blue Sky's owned by Disney.
It doesn't have the thumbprint of Disney and Pixar particularly. One character that you've got to take into consideration is the landscape, which was exquisite.
Absolutely
Exquisite.
agree.
I loved it. And the underwater landscape as well, which you don't see as much, but that was really lovely. No faults with that. The character design of the sea monsters, I instantly disliked. But as soon as they became humans and started turning back into sea monsters, I think it made a bit more sense to me. I didn't particularly like the human, the legs with the what do frogs come from? Tadpoles. The tadpole tail, you know, that kind of thing. I just wasn't getting it.
If the whole film had been those characters, you'd have been those creatures.
I just thought it was a bit naff, really. They were too humanoid. The fact that they'd made them some hair out of the scales.
What's the whole deal with them?
That's a big question.
Why did they change to the humans? That's not addressed, is it?
No,
not at all.
I mean, I suppose they
Didn't
could
need
just go like, that's fine. They're just sea
It
creatures
just
turned to
happens.
humans, but it's a bit strange that it's not. I don't know. There was a point where I thought, what are they? And also, if they were just sea creatures, you'd be like, well, what are they? You know, forget the fact that they turned to humans. Like, what are they to begin with? What are they? Are they mermaids?
Isn't there an M. Night Shyamalan Dong film that's like the opposite of this, with people who turn into monsters, sea monsters? Am I imagining that?
I don't
know.
There's The Shape of Water. Have you seen The Shape of Water?
No, I haven't seen The Shape of Water. No.
That's a
Maybe that's what- maybe I'm
very
thinking of that.
interesting film. I recommend you watch. It's creepy.
And also Splash.
Yes.
Not Splash 2.
That's the other end of the
you know what?
spectrum right there.
I'm not sure I've seen Splash.
So
Or Dirty Dancing.
yeah, it was because they were humanoid and they'd done what they often do. They try and make things familiar, so they'd got the same hairline and fingers and legs, and I just thought it's naff. But because of the way the story had to go, and if they got splashed on, it kind of had to be like that. And seeing the hair turn into real hair and then back to feathery scales. So I made my peace with that.
But
I'm still not
I found
sure.
some of that wiping off of the water a bit too sudden.
Yes, it was.
oh, hands away. I'm a human
Or like when he
being.
fell in the water and then got back into the boat and he was under a bucket. I can't remember what it was. A bucket.
A blanket.
A blanket. And he was just dry straight away.
Yeah, and when he crawled under
Under
the
the
table
table.
and then popped up and
Yeah.
yeah, very convenient. But there must be a level of how wet you need to be.
Yeah, at some point you got to be willing to turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the story, I did like the the Italian gestures that they were doing. They were doing. Like, we've watched Sopranos lately, and there's a lot. There's a
Now
lot of
we're
the
experts.
lot of the thumb to the fingers gesturing.
Some great
lots of
videos
that.
on YouTube that explain what they all mean.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
well
That's
worth a
it,
look
actually.
in.
we
That'd
do
be
like
interesting.
body language videos on
Yeah, we
YouTube.
do. But also the that naughty boy, he was really well animated at times. He was great. I wonder if the animator whose job was focusing on that was really good.
Do you know what I really liked? The design of Giulietta, depending which was. I really liked her level of prettiness, I suppose is what I'm trying to say, because I'm so glad when they do these well-rounded female characters of any age who don't need to have the big eyes and the jawline, because she was quite...
She was tomboyish.
She was tomboyish, but there was nothing aesthetic about her particularly, not in the traditional female way, but she was so appealing and fun and likeable and nice. I really liked that.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned already the setting, but what I loved about the town was when you first see it, it looked really colourful, all these beautifully coloured walls, all these different houses in different colours. But as you get closer to it, you realise it's all quite faded, all quite worn. There's chips and bits where the concrete's coming off, and the boards above the shops are all wooden, worn down, and it's just got this real lived feeling about the whole place, and it made me feel so warm inside. It really did. Loved it.
Made me want them to open the borders.
If only.
I know.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think so, yeah.
Hey, Chris, you haven't said anything about the water.
Yeah, well, it was wet, wasn't it? It's not Disney water, is it?
Chris does like Disney water.
I like Disney water. I'm not so keen on the Pixar water.
Okay.
Nah, it was all right. It was all right. There was a bit actually. Speaking of the sea monsters, one of the bits when he first started coming out of the water, and he came out and just his head came out, and I thought it looks like a bit like flounder, different colours and stuff, but actually in the head looked like a fish.
Okay.
But then it had this whole body attached to it as well. I probably should have said that when you were talking about sea monsters earlier, but I didn't. So there you go. Anything else on animation? Score it.
Kick it off.
I'm going to give it an 8. I love the overall look of it, particularly the setting. I'm not 100% on whether I like the bean mouth or not. Now that you've called it bean mouth, I would have called it CalArts. I've written CalArts here, but I'm just changing it because I'm moving with
If
the
that's not
times.
clear to anyone why it's called that, it's because the mouths are the shape of a bean.
Yeah.
It's
Simple as that.
very distinct, isn't it?
I'm just not sure it works on 3D. I can't decide because I can see what they were trying to do, and I think there's potential there. I think just keep at it, guys. Keep trying it. You'll
I
get
thought
there.
bean mouth worked well, actually.
I liked it. I'm giving it a 9.
I've given it an 8. It's nice enough, but actually, when it comes down to it, those extra sort of couple of points, there was nothing new and exciting. You know, like when you watch Coco, there are bits in that way. You see the underworld. I can't remember what it's called, and it's just like wow,
Land
look
of
at
the
that.
Dead.
And there's not really anything. There doesn't have to be, but basically, there was no moment like that where I went, "Oh, that's new, that's different." So it was just it was solid at 8.
Yeah. Music then.
So me do. We are going to talk about the music hits. Rate the songs and score the incidental bits.
Can I just say I love this soundtrack?
It's great.
Oh, I have a real thing about Italian music in general, and that kind of I don't even know, but like 50s, 60s sort of 60s sort of era feel to it. It pulled me in straight away. And again, I'll go back to Talented Mr. Ripley and all the jazz that's in that. And there's something about they couldn't have had any other music for that setting if they were going to get this right, both visually and music wise. It had to be like that, and it. Yeah, I don't have much more to say except I just loved it from beginning to end musically.
I've got very little to say about it. It's just it was refreshing. It's something that almost everybody won't have heard any of that music. I haven't. I consider myself relatively muso, but I've never heard any of it, and I probably never will hear it since from now on. But it was just nice to listen to this refreshing 60s Italian pop songs.
I really loved the transition with the opening from the sound design from kind of a cinematic sense, and then they had it. What do you call it, Hugh? Diegetic and non-diegetic sound.
Correct.
There you go. And that then, the fact that the music, the gramophone, was the thing that sort of led you down into the sea as well. So it became important, not just as actual music, but as an item. Very clever.
I knew there was going to be that bit where the music sort of cut off and it echoed out, it reverbed out. I felt it coming when it happened. I was like, here we go. Oh, there it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The music cuts out, but it echoes and like, oh, we're transitioning. Something weird's happening.
Because sound travels really well through water, doesn't it?
But yeah, it
You're a
was.
whale.
It was very appealing. Very appealing.
Yeah, I literally have nothing else to say about the music except
Me
that.
neither.
No. Score it.
Oh, 8.
I've given it a 9. I would listen to this soundtrack gladly. I can't get a 10 because I can't remember any of them right now.
Yeah,
I think that's
so,
why I went with 8. It's like
But I've given it a 9 because it's just really good fun.
I echo everything you just said, Hugh, and it's a 9 for me as well. There we are.
Yeah, indeed.
Now, I don't know if you've looked at IMDb because it's early days, isn't it? But it was hanging around 7.2 or 7.3 last time I looked for the audience.
well, I've got IMDb here. Do you want to look at? Oh, have you got it?
I don't. No, I don't have Red Tomatoes. Right, whatever it's called, that thing. What's it called?
I'll look at Rotten
What's it
Tomatoes.
called? That's the one. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes. Oh. In the meantime, I guess we could talk about something else, but I don't know what.
It's
Have you got a
given-
score yet, Iggy?
Have you got a cry factor,
I
Hugh?
can give it the cry factor.
Oh, let me do that then. Okay.
It's absolutely beautiful. He really loves it. I don't know why they just can't be together.
Hugh's Cry Factor.
I got a stirring when Luca went out in the rain to save Alberto and he changed back in slow motion. Something about, I've said this recently, just the Maximus in Tangled, just a slow motion horse. I was like, something about slow motion just gets me. So you know when he's like, he reaches out and he slowly turns back. You know, he's sheltering from the rain for all that time, and he goes out. That bit, but that was a bit of a lump in the throat. But then, yeah, the goodbye at the end was, that took it up a notch. It wasn't massive. It wasn't up. I'm not talking up here, but like, as we said earlier, what a refreshing change not to be cajoled into like bawling your eyes out. It was just like, I think that the cries in this were deserved, is what it was.
Yes, absolutely
They were
agree.
earned. I've given it a 3. Ooh, nearly lost it there. I didn't have a good grip on my pencil.
Okay, so the scores are in, and IMDb give it 7.6. If you follow IMDb, very, very average there. They did better on Rotten Tomatoes, which tends to be a little bit more discerning. So they've done 89% for the critics and 88% for the audience.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, not bad at all, is it?
But what do we give it?
That's the question.
We gave it 81.
Ooh.
Now, I prefer Onward. I really like Onward. But we gave that 76. I'm looking
That was
for
kind of my fault, though, wasn't it?
this. We're giving this the same score, can you believe, as Pinocchio.
P-I-N-O-C-H-I-O.
See, I'm not
Pinocchio.
not a Pinocchio fan,
Oh.
but I think anything from the Golden... Well, not in...
This is one more than The Lion King.
Wow.
One more than Aladdin.
We've been generous. Look at you two with your 9s.
It's the music.
It's the music. It
Bed Up
is.
Broomsticks, 80.
It's really...
But the music was such an... I won't say non-feature because we all enjoyed it, but it was just kind of there.
But what I will do at some point is I will take all these scores that we've got and I'll make them into separate tables, Pixar films,
Yes.
and the classics through the eras, so that then we've got a better understanding. Because I
Yeah.
think it's really difficult to compare what Pinocchio was, for instance, to what this is, or Lion King as well. It's really difficult.
And when
to bring
you're
them together.
reviewing Lion King the week after you've just reviewed, what will it have been, like Pocahontas or something?
Yep.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
There we are.
I'm looking for more 81s, but I don't know. Winnie the Pooh, 84.
Was Cinderella around that?
Cinderella, Where is
no,
that?
It's there. That's painfully low.
64 we gave
Yeah.
that.
Sorry, Cinders.
The story's quite
Go back and listen
Lean.
and see why.
Well, we've got through that fairly spirited, haven't we?
as was the plan.
As was the plan, yeah. Okay, well,
Short one.
we're just about at the end of this. Just to say that we've got everything on YouTube. We've got things on Twitter, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. You can catch our podcasts on our podcast client or any podcast client. We've got this and we've got the DLP show as well. Lucy puts all kinds of interesting videos on YouTube because she's very active at that stuff. Hugh and I do it every now and again when we remember. And if you want to support us at all, we've also got a Patreon as well. You can give us £3 a month and it just helps us do clever stuff with technical stuff.
Keeps us in microphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got new mics.
Woo.
Mine's in my hidden Mickey.
You can't see
I
mine
moved
too much,
mine
is it?
earlier on this show, so you might have heard me going. You know when you're watching something and you can just do. Oh, maybe I'll just do it on here.
Yeah, I hit mine earlier, so we've all done
Punched
it. It happens, doesn't it? Well, there we go. We'll be back in a week now, and it's going to be what? Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph in a week's time.
Oh,
Exciting stuff, isn't it?
We're just getting through them now, aren't
Firing through, we are. So yeah, we'll see you then. Bye.
we? Bye.
Bye, pals.